From cassette to covert, here's a look at the new Hasbro Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy, Covert Agent Ravage. Decepticons Forever. From the iconic animated series Beast Wars Transformers, this 2-pack is inspired by the scene where Ravage joins the Predacons, converts into his original Decepticon mini-cassette mode, and leaps into the Transwarp Cruiser tape recorder. Ravage may have been reformatted into a Predacon, but after watching a secret message from his long-dead Decepticon leader, he realizes where his allegiances lie. Just before we get a closer look at Covert Agent Ravage, I'd like to thank the folks over at Hasbro that took the time and provided this sample that we could have a look at in this review. Covert Agent Ravage is a retooling of the original Transformers Beast Wars Cheetor. And just to show you as a comparison of that, we're going to move over Ravage. We're going to bring in that Cheetor. And while, yes, you can see there's some heavily retooled elements between the two figures, they are actually sharing the same similar body and a very similar type of transformation. Having a look at the accessories that come included with Ravage, starting first, he gets himself a Generation 1 version of himself. And it's really fun the fact that Hasbro would have included that. First, having a look at it, it's the very same Ravage as what we've gotten way far back into the 80s. It transforms the exact same way. I've noticed, though, that it seems like the legs may be using die-cast metal. And I think the original Ravage would have done that as well. Let's flip it around so you can see it from all the sides. Yeah, you can already see how this Ravage transforms. It's a pretty straightforward, simple transformation. The neat thing about it, though, is if you go back to the packaging where both these figures are sitting inside of, you actually get inside the cockpit area of Ravage's ship. Now, the only problem with it, though, is it doesn't seem to have enough of a stabilizing bit of cardboard to hold it upright. So it does seem to want to tip backwards a little bit. But the neat thing about it, though, is if you take your Ravage tape cassette here, you can actually fit it inside the Transwarp Cruiser tape recorder. And see, I don't know if you can see it or not. First of all, the detailing on the inside of the packaging is really nice. But right here is the insert and the little tape deck that Ravage sits inside of. It's pretty tight quarters, though, but it does sit inside the tape deck like that. And then from there, you can actually just spring it out. It doesn't actually spring out. We're just going to pull it out. It's all made of cardboard, and it certainly makes for a nice little showpiece to have displayed along with the figures. I kind of, again, wish that it didn't lean as back far as it did, but at least it's nice the fact that they found a way to incorporate the package to a Generation 1 Ravage. Let's move that out of the way. For the transformation on Ravage, it's super straightforward. Just bring back the tail, bring forward the head, and just extend out the legs and get them to the desired look that you want to have them. I mean, there's posability in the legs themselves. There's also posability in the paws. I should have really brought out my Ravage from Generation 1 at the time of the review. I just simply couldn't find it, but it's basically the same Ravage as what we already get. The neat thing also about this is that Ravage comes also included with little back missiles that went onto the back of the Generation 1 toy as well. And I think these ones here are slightly bigger. And they're using a vacuum form chrome. So a little bit nicer to fill out the figure. Ravage has always had a difficult time of standing, and this one is no different. But it's nice to see that they actually included a Generation 1 Ravage to go along with Covert Agent Ravage. A nice touch on Hasbro's part. He also comes included with a couple of these little blaster pistols. And they seem to be identical to one another. Possibly here molded in black plastic, and then just the end barrels painted in silver. Now, there are these clips on the sides of each of the blasters, and the neat thing about it, though, is not only does it attach to him in Panther mode, but also slotted here on the sides of his legs, right here and right here. You can then take the pistols and holster them to the side of his leg. Snap it on the one side, and then we'll do the exact same thing on the other side. And that's neat, the fact that they actually do that. Or, of course, being the fact that he does have handles, or they have handles, you can easily put them also into the hands of Ravage, too. He has the one in the one hand, and then literally on the other hand, you can go ahead and put that in place as well. And being the fact that he does have some additional articulation there in the elbows, let's just get that to turn around, there we go. You can actually have Ravage displayed with the cannons, the pistols, the blasters in his hand. let's go ahead and remove those. We'll go back to these too, because when we transform him into Panther mode, you can actually attach these to the sides of his legs. First of all, let's get a closer look at the figure. Getting a brand new head sculpt, although I have to wonder if this is the head sculpt that we're going to be getting for Tigatron. I like the dark use of plastic that they've used, and also the bright coloring of the red eyes. There is also the functionality of having his mouth open up. It's a little harder to get your finger in there, but just flick that open. And they have actually painted in the tongue as well as his teeth as well. He does also have onto the side the Predacon logo. It's a nice touch to see that included. Again, heavily retooled from the original Cheetor mold. I mean, we'll just move this guy over, and just one last time to bring this guy in so you can see. The arms look like they're very similar but still changed. The legs will fold out the exact same when it comes to his legs, or at least the hind legs of the cat mode. Again, it goes to show really what they're able to do by taking an initial mold, retooling it heavily, and giving us Covert Agent Ravage instead. It does some really interesting things also when it comes to his legs, and we'll get more into that in a second when we actually transform this guy. He's got a little tail on the back that you can bring up. The legs don't seem to be, there's no real right or wrong place to store the legs, just being the fact that they only hinge back and forth this way and this way. You're always going to have the legs, the back of the Panther sort of hanging down on the back of the figure. But it's a nice complete looking Ravage. It does look good from all the sides, and it certainly does look like him from that, I think it was a 2-part or maybe a single episode on Beast Wars. Nice use of silver as well, added in there some additional gold, and the red there also in his buckle area of his torso. It is a really nice looking figure. For his articulation, before we get to the transformation of this guy, he does have a ball joint, so the head does move not only back and forth this way, but also moves up and moves down. I guess technically as well, you can count the mouth as a little bit of additional articulation. Really like that head sculpt. The arms hinge out. That's the same also on both sides. The bicep swivels, or the shoulder I should say swivels, but then also the bicep also swivels. It's a little harder to get in there. He has not only a single hinge, but he also has a double hinge on the elbow. A lot of that has more to do with the transformation. He does also have a swivel in his wrist, swivel in his waist, although it's a little harder because so much of his back hind legs are getting in the way of things. He has technically articulation in the tail as well. Legs split out. Seems to be sitting on ball joints there. You bring the legs forward, you can bring the legs back, and he also bends at the knee. And he does also have toe articulation as well, foot articulation. So a pretty posable looking Ravage. Let's get into transforming him now. Now, if you transformed Cheetor, you're pretty much going to be doing the exact same thing here with Ravage. Starting first, what you're going to want to do is bring the arms around here. You're going to spin them around. And you're going to bring them around this way so the hinge joint is facing. Actually, what you want is this little slot right here. It's going to fit into this hole here. You also can straighten out the arms, or straighten out the hands, so you want to have the continuation of the fur, and that's going to play a big crucial role. But what you're going to do is just plug that in place. You do the exact same thing on the other side. Again, see where that slot is. Bring the arm around until you line the slot up with the little peg. Bring that around. Twist the hand around as well. And then you're going to bring that in and snap that into place. And that's pretty much his arms. Then from there, you're going to gain access to his torso. His torso is a little harder to get to. There you go. It helps if you kind of take your finger and get right behind the back shoulder area and just basically bring this forward. Now, I didn't think, honestly, the first time I did this, that there was going to be enough clearance. You can also take the front area that will be the front chest of the Panther and bring that up as well. And then what you're going to do is you're going to collapse in the arms. Now the arms will fit inside, and put them in as far in as you could possibly get them, and bring this up, because you really want to get things out of the way here. Make sure that everything is far enough down as you can get it. And then I didn't think there was any way that I'd be able to fold this up, because everything is super close in quarters. You also will want to bring the arms forward, or the legs forward of the Panther. And what's interesting, though, is when you bring them forward, it leaves these open gaps on the back of his torso. And now that plays into then these arms, because when you fold everything in, and bring this around so you can see it from this side, when you bring the torso in, what it actually does is it takes those arms from Ravage and actually fills in the top of his back. That's really clever the way they've done that. From there, bring the front of the panel here just to finish up the front of his chest. You can also bring up the head as well. It's entirely up to you as well if you want to bring and open up the mouth. Let's just do that right now. There we go. And then from there, you're basically just going to now fix and work on the legs. So you can bring the front legs forward. You can also bend these as well. And we're just going to correct out the legs. And we already have the front half of the cat mode now completed. For the back end of things, you're going to bring back these feet, tuck them inside. And when you tuck them then inside, you're going to bring out the hind legs. You can straighten out the tail if you want to, and then just sort of bend the legs until you get the desired look that you want. I like to have the legs a little higher up myself, and then just straighten out the legs, straighten out the feet, and then you got yourself Ravage in his cat mode. And then to finish up the look of Ravage, what you can then also do too, is go back, grab these blasters that we looked at earlier. And they attach the same way as they did also before. Straighten out his waist. Slotted here on the side, you're going to take the blasters and you're going to fit them the opposite way. I know what you're already thinking. Why wouldn't you want it to have flipped it this way? Well, you can. The downside to it, though, is if you have them facing this way, they're going to get in the way. So you really can't quite replicate the look of Ravage with the little missile pods on the sides of its legs. Because again, it's awfully close quarters. You can already see how that's butting up to the front of its legs. So instead, what you're going to want to do is attach them to the back. I guess it also helps to fill in a bit of the cat mode on the back also. I do the exact same thing on this side as well. And there, you've got yourself a pretty neat looking Ravage. As I said, in his cat mode. And then for some comparisons in cat mode, we can bring in Cheetor. Now, Cheetor did have a little more of an elaborate transformation, and it did also involve removing the back of his tail for his gun, so we can plug that back into place. But we'll put Cheetor next to Ravage. So you can see that Ravage is a little bit bigger and bulkier of a cat. He uses similar transformations, but actually I do find his transformation from robot mode to cat mode a little more simpler than what we did with the previous looked at Cheetor. To get Ravage transformed back to robot mode, you're basically reversing all the steps. So we'll go ahead and pick him up. We're going to first of all remove the back cannons because we don't need those in the way of things. We can bring in the legs. Actually bring the legs in forward this way. Just straighten out the legs. Bring these forward and also bring out his feet. And right away, you already see his legs are already finished. Bring these arms back. Bring this part forward just to get things out of the way. And then you get access to his torso, which once again, just reach your finger behind and detach it. And when it detaches it, it removes again those arms from the back of his torso. Really, really clever the way they've done that. Once that's out of the way, fold all the arms out. You bring this in, bring the head up, and bring the torso back in. And you want to make sure that this back piece is folded back all the way, making sure everything is out of the way of things. There we go. His one leg was in the way of things. Snap that forward, extend out the arms, detach the arms, turn these around, and turn the fists around. Do that on both sides. That's pretty much Ravage. And then from there, just go to the back, fold up his tail, and then you can just bring in his arms. Now his arms, the legs, I should say, of the cat, will actually then sit in that open area. It's really clever the way they've done the design of this guy. And then once that's in, there's really, again, no rhyme or reason for where these legs go. I mean, these sit in those little open socket areas. But then for the back of the legs or the bottom of the legs, they're just going to, I guess you could kind of just tuck the legs up a little bit and fold those in. And there you have Ravage. Let's go ahead and get his blasters in his hands. I was a big fan of the Cheetor design when they did that for the Beast Wars run. And again, utilizing still that Beast Wars mold for the most part. I know, again, there's some heavily retooling that they did here for Ravage. You get yourself a Ravage, a believable looking Ravage from the Beast Wars cartoon. Though Ravage really wasn't in the cartoon, well, short of maybe I think 1 or 2 episodes at the very most, he certainly did leave a lasting enough impression, and from Hasbro's part, a smart enough solution of what they could do then with the Cheetor mold. You get yourself a nice looking Ravage, and then certainly to go along with the Ravage, you get yourself a Generation 1 Ravage too. That's great if you didn't get a chance to get this guy before, but certainly nice little nod to see where Ravage started from. and what he ended up turning and becoming later on. It was really clever the way that Hasbro made use of the inside of the packaging for Covert Agent Ravage and turned it into his Transwarp Cruiser, complete with a tape deck that you can then take that included Generation 1 Ravage, fold them back up in a cassette, and slot it into that opening of the tape recorder. Now, Ravage here makes use of similar, not the same, but similar elements to both Tigertron and Cheetor. I don't have Tigertron yet, but it's something I certainly want to pick up down the road. Similar transformation steps, but you can definitely see that Ravage is a completely new beast in himself, in the fact that he has much bigger, bulkier body, and his head seems to be something that's shared with both his beast mode and his robot mode, unlike Cheetor and Tigertron that had their own designated robot heads. Now, he does have also the included blasters, which you can holster onto the sides of his legs. I'd rather, I think, just instead displaying with them in his hands. Now, you can attach it, of course, similar to the Generation 1 Ravage, onto the side of the cat mode's legs, or the cat mode's hind legs. Unfortunately, though, you can't have them facing forward, which is kind of the way I would have preferred to have them, but it's just too tight of a quarter. Instead, you have to spin them around the opposite way, so it kind of looks like he's got more thrusters than he actually has blasters on his legs. Fine work, though, from Hasbro. A big thank you again to the folks over at Hasbro that provided this sample of the Covert Agent Ravage that we could have a look at in this review. Hey now, are you new here? I'm not just saying that to the gentleman that just walked into the room right now. No, it's not you, sir. I wasn't actually, it was just generally making that statement. If you are new here and you're enjoying the content you're seeing, you can do a couple of things for yourself. First of all, you can hit that subscribe button down below. You can turn on the bell notification. And yet, yes, you can keep your peepers peeled, because there will be more Hasbro reviews lined up and coming your way. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.